A single individual stands still, listening to the endless and infinite whistling of the snowy winds blowing through the dark and empty sky. All around them is nothing but dark, cold, blistering air and desolate ice. There is nothing. No life could live, no soul could traverse this mountain. For all, this was death. And yet, despite all odds, there was a single soul stood in the frigid air with a smile on their face as they breathed in deeply. Each bit of frozen breeze carried their essence, their consciousness, their very being. They could feel the wind move, embrace the cold. Everywhere it went, they were also there, as one. They saw the beautiful moonlight glinting off the white cover. They saw the sprawling sky glistening with 1,000 stars. Yes, they truly were one with the ice that enclosed and protected the mountain beneath them. As they continued to embrace their surroundings, a small sound called out, one which would be impossible to hear over the screaming gale for most. But for them, nothing happened on this mountain without them knowing about it. With a quick shrug, bright, shimmering silver dragon wings extended from their back as they took off into the air, gliding on the storm as if the winds themselves desired for them to get to their destination. Despite constantly buffeting to and fro, they never seemed to bash against the walls or the jagged rocks about them, even though their flight seemed to be impossible and ending in any other way than a grisly death on the rocks below. They fly left, right, up, down, even between small fissures in the rocks before them. They always just barely avoid death. For the mountain is their friend. The mountain was their territory, their very being. They were one with this blizzard storm. So, a few people have commented on my Why You Should video stating that I have a tendency to go out of my way to not mention sorcerers, even when talking about full casters. It's true. I have a very tenuous relationship with the sorcerer because it is the only class out of every single one of them that I actually don't like. Oh, come on, I'm allowed to have an opinion. But I've sort of made a staple of my channel so far based on always being positive and seeing the good in every single class. But I'm actually just not that much a fan of the Sorcerer, despite having played one for a very long period of time. So I'm sure the question is, why don't I like Sorcerer, huh? Well, I don't actually have a reason. I've literally never been able to put my finger onto why it is that I actually dislike this class. There are other classes that I've disliked, and I was able to clearly pinpoint that. I didn't like Paladin because I really didn't like the idea of this goody two-shoes until I figured out that it was a misconception. I didn't like Cleric for the same reason until, again, I figured out that it was just a general misconception. And my dislike for both of them probably comes from my religious background and the fact that I grew up in a religious area and I've always kind of dealt with the fallout from that. But Sorcerer? Sorcerer doesn't have anything to do with that. I just can't really pin down why I actually dislike the class, even after playing one for an extended period of time in an attempt to figure out why I don't like the class. But I've never figured it out. So today, we get to do something a little bit different. I'll be discussing my thoughts on the Sorcerer, yes, but we're going to try to get to the bottom of this. In fact, from this point on, this video is a mystery investigation. Our case? Why I'm such a stick in the mud when it comes to the Sorcerer. So I want to talk about the embodiment of magical talent. I want to talk about the Sorcerer. So let's talk about that. Let's start off with talking about what the Sorcerer's fantasy is. The Sorcerer's fantasy is supposed to be the spellcaster of immense power, someone who has magic boiling in them to the point where it literally overflows from their cup and into the world around them. They are not the wizard which studied for long periods of time to be able to manipulate the weave. They are not the bard who has figured out how to connect to the weave through different types of performances. And they're not clerics or druids who have managed to tap into the weave by their innate connection to a greater being, such as nature or a god. No, sorcerers manipulate the weave because they told it to do something, and it's gonna say yes. They have magic innately in them, and they have this connection to the weave that they don't even necessarily control. They are magic incarnate with raw potential and power overflowing from their very veins. That's a cool fantasy, and one I like, but I still have problems with the Sorcerer. See, I want the Sorcerer to feel like magic incarnate, an embodiment of a force of magic that is personified into a humanoid form. I want them to be able to display immense power that can often be uncontrollable and burst out of them. I want them to seem like this force of will that controls the weave around them. And yet, when I found myself playing the Sorcerer, I felt like I was playing an off-brand wizard with less options. I didn't even feel like magic incarnate, and I didn't feel like at any moment the weave around me could bend at what I wanted it to do. I just kind of felt like a wizard who had a different flavor of casting. On top of that, I felt a lot of the sorcerer was focused around giving them a ton of cantrips, as they're pretty much the only class that gets that many cantrips in the game, but I hardly ever used them. They were just there. They weren't that important to me. Why do I have all these cantrips? Why can't I learn more spells instead of having a ton of cantrips? Not to mention the actual base class of the sorcerer just felt really uninspiring to me. They don't really get hardly anything that they're allowed to do. It's all based off of their subclass, like the druid, which I mentioned in my last Why You Should video. Spoiler alert, I recorded these out of order. My last Why You Should video was actually the rogue, but point remains. But unlike the druid, it feels like the subclasses are just kind of tacked on as general feats rather than class features. They don't feel like they're core to the class. With the druid, I understood. Each druid subclass changed what you could do with wild shape, and it included the additional features that you got in the base class. Sorcerer just feels like general features outside of what you get in the base class of sorcerer, which is not a lot at all. And it just left me feeling uninspired. Oof, I am not used to this amount of negativity in my videos. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much why I don't like sorcerers. To me, they feel kind of like an underdeveloped wizard. I mean, where is the raw potential? If these are really people with magic literally ingrained in their very lifeblood, shouldn't they be massive, larger than life, uncontainable? Where's the flavor of it all? Wait a minute, hold on. Is that it? Is that what I'm missing? The very ingredient that I constantly preach about, even in the very first video I ever made on this channel. Could I have possibly forgotten it? Is the reason why you should play sorcerer flavor? No, it couldn't be. That's too simple. I would have noticed that. I'm the flavor king. Or have I missed it? Have I become blind in my own arrogance? I wanted the sorcerer's base class to be bursting with flavor, and so I quickly dismissed the subclasses, but are the subclasses bursting with the flavor that I wanted? Perhaps I've missed the true core of the sorcerer, the freedom of flavor. Now, for those of you who don't know what flavor is, as I stated earlier, I actually have made a video on that, one of the first on my channel, so it's pretty bad, I apologize, but I will link it in the description and the card above. But flavor is very powerful, and something I mentioned in a lot of my Why You Should videos, so it's kind of funny that it's just gone over my head for the sorcerer. But legitimately, as I've been writing this video, I've begun to realize where I might have gone wrong. Sorcerers have the freedom to be flavorful wizards. I mean, wizards have their own flavor in being studious and learning how to manipulate the weave of magic, but look at their subclasses. They're all based on schools of magic, not flavors of magic. The wizard can be a master in necromancy, sure, but the sorcerer could be master not of necromancy, but of necrotic. Wizards have capitalization on the spell schools, but sorcerers have capitalization on forms of magic itself. Fire, ice, wind. A wizard may have mastered different types of magic, but a sorcerer is a type of magic. And then they have metamagics, which allow them to use those different ways of manipulating their spells to fulfill the fantasy of being that type of magic. The sorcerer I played was a divine soul, and he was a healer who had the literal blood of the gods in ichor running through his veins. He could heal, buff, change people to be better versions of themselves, and I used metamagics only to expand upon that. He would twin spell buff spells. He would extend those same buffing spells. He was healing. And now that I'm thinking about it, the subclasses allow you to be able to supplement flexible flavors for your spells. Again, as an example with the Divine Soul, I had all these subclass features which allowed me to heal better and to buff myself. Favor of the Gods, the ability to fly, all of those were just supplements on the type of spellcaster I wanted to be. Somebody who emulated the form of magic that was healing. And the same is true for other subclasses, like Draconic Soul. You want to be a specific type of element? Draconic Soul is there for you. It allows you to expand upon that. The subclasses allow you to fulfill the flavor of the type of magic you want to embody. And I don't know how I missed that until now. Sorcerers will play somebody who has magic at the very fingertips, and the rest is just kind of icing on the cake. Do I think the Sorcerer is the strongest class? No. There's a lot of difficulty and weaknesses about it. I would change some things. But I'm understanding now the point of it all. The reason you have all those cantrips is so you can emulate somebody who has magic flowing out of them at any moment. I think the only issue is that there just aren't a lot of cantrips that have the flavor to match the flavor of the Sorcerer. If I were going to create a homebrew supplement, I would create tons of additional cantrips just for the specific reason of being flavorful for the Sorcerer. And I would make those cantrips only available to the Sorcerer. If any of you are interested in seeing a supplement like that from me, please let me know, because that actually sounds really exciting. But I'm realizing now that the Sorcerer is just flavor incarnate. When I played a Divine Soul Sorcerer, I looked at every single spell possible to find the ones that were possible to flavor towards what I wanted to be, and I know that other sorcerers do this since I've DM'd for several. So why should you play a sorcerer? I didn't start this video with an answer, but I have one now. It's to be flavor, it's to experience the embodiment of magic, to be able to go out into the world, to make a character who has the ability to show the world fire magic, elemental magic, magic of healing, the magic of buffing. You get to be a certain type of magic. Sure, maybe the wizard can cast some spells that do what you do, but they cannot be the embodiment of what you do. You are magic incarnate, and everything you do will be flavored around what you want your sorcerer to be embodied by. That's why you should go out and make a sorcerer, you beautiful bastards. Go out into the world and make it your own. Don't forget to have a great day, and never forget to play your role. Thank you. Come again.